You guys can mark my words. This is gonna happen. You're gonna start seeing promotions buy and sell and trade their fighters like NFL agents.
What up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another Sound of Violence podcast. We are a podcast that lets you know each week the MMA podcasts to catch, skip, and the ones you can't miss, as well as we try and check out some new shows, which I'm going to do a bunch of today. I am Pulver, and I am normally here with my co-host Chris Madaffer. However, he got caught up in some stuff, so he is unfortunately not going to be able to make it today, but he will actually have his picks later on for the I had him text me his picks for the Moncton card, which we'll talk about a bit later. That was my squeaky ass headphones. I don't know why I'm wearing headphones other than I guess just out of habit, so I'll take those off. But I'm doing this Bill Burr style or Dan Tom style if we're keeping it to the MMA podcast, but I'm doing this one solo, so I'm just gonna run through the stuff I recommend people check out and all that, and then we'll get to the picks. It's going to be a quick episode, but I didn't want to leave anybody hanging since there was actually a bunch of really good MMA podcasts this week. Oh, you know what? I should open this since it is still Sober October. I am not drinking booze. However, I do have a sweet, sweet cherry lime Zions Energy. I didn't even know they still fucking made these things, but I saw this shit and I picked it up. I also have a grape flavored NOS energy drink. Since I'm keeping it hella MMA right now, that thing tastes like metallic grape Jolly Ranchers. It's real fucking bad, so don't get that shit. But this Zions energy drink, not the worst thing ever. Our actual Papa Vodka presents Doug Stanhope presents our sponsors is going to be Fire OG this week. I'm smoking Fire OG from I don't know where it's from. Somewhere. Urban Leaf, I want to say, down here in San Diego. So, shouts out to them. Alright, let's go ahead and get into this. We will talk about the clip you heard a minute ago. We talk about some other shows that I listened to, but that shit was really interesting. I'm going to start this off with my catch. The MMA podcast I recommend people catch this week is the Main Event podcast, episode 33. This is, of course, Elias Theodoro's show that he does with... what's his co-host name? I can never remember dude's name. Anyway, Elias Theodoro has a podcast. It's worth checking out. It opens with Cypress Hill, and knowing how Canadian Elias is, you know there's about to be Halloween talk after that. So they talk a lot about the legalization of weed in Canada. Travis is his co-host name. That's right. He sounds high as shit. Actually, they both sound high as shit during that, which is hilarious. And let's see. So I talk about what's going on with Elias and how he's going to be going to the Moncton card with Elias, actually. Talk about Volkan versus Smith and Johnson versus Lobov, which, oh boy, we'll get to later, but oh boy. And Elias announces that he's going to be working to try and be more of a spokesperson for athletes who use cannabis. He has been working with Jeff Nowitzki a whole bunch to try and get a TUE for cannabis, and evidently from what they were talking about, he says he uses it for bilateral neuropathic pain, which is stuff like stingers and soreness, stuff like that. But he's working to get the TUE with Jeff Nowitzki, and USADA is making him, I believe the quote was, exhaust all other options. So they're making him take opioids and all kinds of crazy shit to prove that they don't work as effectively as cannabis, which that seems kind of crazy, but interesting nonetheless. So he's been doing that. He's been working with them for a while. I think he's applied 4 times now. And from what he said, they don't actually deny you a TUE. They just say they need more information over and over again, which is cute. But yeah, just an interesting episode, and it's cool hearing him talk so honestly about that and be so upfront about it. They also talk a bit about Bellator 208, which, oh boy. And there was an hour of silence tacked on to the end of that episode, so somebody fucked up the editing somewhere. But it was a solid ep. I definitely recommend people give it a listen. For my skip this week, I could have not had a skip. But honestly, it's the fucking quote halfway through this that I was like, oh, this is why I don't listen to this show anymore. And that is Ariel Helwani's MMA show, episode 18. I can't do it, man. It opens with him whining about being cold a whole bunch. That's kind of solid content he's putting out right now. They do talk a bit about... Oh, Weidman calls in to talk about Rockhold dropping out of that fight. Ariel uses phrases like, I've been sliding into your DMs, Chris. It's real good. Asks some super relevant questions like stuff about Kevin James. He's still fighting this, by the way, in like fucking less than a month. But let's ask him about Kevin James. Ryan Bader calls in. It's a Ryan Bader interview. Talks about the win. Talks about the tournament. Talks about how he wants to fight Fedor. Or, I mean, not Fedor. Yeah, Fedor. Let's see. Ally Quinta Skypes in to talk about beating Kevin Lee. Mean Anderson calls in to talk about fighting Kat Zingano. And this is where Ariel says the quote that you will hear on the break. I fucking can't, you guys. I can't. What? He used to be so decent at his job. I don't know if it's... I don't know who fucking completely ruined that dude. I think Connor, honestly. I think covering Connor made him pretty trash at his job. That's not true. He's good at breaking news. He's terrible at putting out relevant MMA content. Shouts to his fucking giant long interview with Artem Lobov, which we're not going to talk about that. Even though it was technically part of this show, kind of, because that's how he puts out content now. Anyway, if you guys can't tell, I'm annoyed as fuck at Ariel every time I have to listen to his show. So that's why I normally don't do it, because I can't make him a skip every week. Also why I did not listen to Brendan Schaub this week. I just can't, you guys. Megan Anderson does say that she's a fan of Gus at one point, and Ariel says, wow, he's kind of a controversial figure, and goes on a good long stretch before he realizes she said Gus and not John Jones. Ariel's just thinking about John Jones nonstop. There was a 40-minute interview with a boxer, in case you wanted to hear a female boxer talk for 40 minutes on a show called The MMA Show. Ariel goes over and over and over again that MMA is pushing women's combat sports forward. Said it over and over again. He also, not long after, brought up the fact that they wear tighter clothes while competing, and that's why they get more appeal. Yeah, it was like right after. It's a fucking terrible point, so I don't know. That dude just drives me fucking nuts. Of course, he gets stuck on the fact that she was in Ronda's camp for Nunes and tries multiple times to get information out of her about it, even though she's told him on the show multiple times that she has an NDA. Like, the last time he interviewed her, probably when the fight happened, so like 2 years ago almost. Jesus. That was 2 years ago, right? Not a year ago? If that was a year ago, it's been a long fucking year. Let's see. Ariel is terrible at filling time. He just repeats who's up next over and over and over again, which is not how you fill time. Till calls in talking about how maybe now he's staying at 170 pounds and he keeps calling Askren a sheep on Twitter. Whatever. Eddie Alvarez is in studio and he talks a bit about going to one and testing out free agency. And then, of course, Valentina is on to talk about the JJ fight because Ariel just fucking pushes the Valentina narrative over and over and over again. Speaking of which, Luke Thomas did have Sarge Eubanks on his show, which was much better. It was a much better show. I recommend people give that a listen. Sarge was great on there, and Luke was interesting. So, that was just much better. Let's see, and we'll get to my can't miss episode. The episode I think people can't miss. You know what? Maybe I'll play this. I'll play this clip on the next break as well, right after the super annoying Ariel clip, because I need something to cheer me up after that stupid fucking Ariel clip. So hopefully it'll cheer y'all up too. The clip is from this past weekend, episode 142, which is of course Theo Vaughn's podcast. He had Dustin Poirier in studio, which is dope as hell. Also, I think he's recording an episode with Uriah Faber, Like I think he just recorded it this week. I don't think it's out yet, so keep an eye out for that. That'll be hilarious. But they opened talking about a ton of Louisiana stuff and Abita Springs. Shouts out to Abita Amber and all the Abita beers. That they are the jam. Talk about how Russians are wild. Theo has so many goddamn good quotes in this. Here's a quote from Theo. I don't think I could really defend myself. Like, maybe if I had a shield or something. Dustin talks about how he's out in LA getting stem cells for his hip and how he might be interested in training fighters after his career. Theo's thoughts on Cub Swanson during Dustin's fight against Cub. Theo says that guy is like fighting 40 raccoons. Just only shit that Theo could say. So, pretty fucking funny. Let's see. Dustin talks a bit about his charity where he gives back a lot to the New Orleans area. Theo coins the phrase a bangover. He calls it like a hangover, but for fighting. Pretty good. Theo talks a bit about Cormier, saying he's like an ottoman. You ever try to push over an ottoman? Just that kind of shit the entire time. Dustin's also super funny. Tells some cool stories about Louisiana and New Orleans. Actually, he talks about a street fight he was in Mardi Gras, which is real good. Maybe that's what a clip I'll drop in is some of their Mardi Gras stories because it's hilarious. So keep an eye out for that on this next break. But just a really funny episode. Theo Vaughn is underrated, hilarious. Also a super, super nice dude. Met him at La Jolla Comedy Store a couple times. Just a really nice guy. So definitely give that a listen. I really like Dustin Poirier. And it's a lot of fun. Plus, I'm a giant Louisiana homer. So anytime a podcast is talking about Louisiana, might end up mentioning it. Let's see. I did listen to a couple new shows this week, which was pretty interesting. I actually really liked all of them. There's so many new shows I've been meaning to catch up on. I listened to a handful because I wanted to since this is gonna be a shorter ep and I'm gonna be rambling. Figured I would cram a bunch of them in. So I listened to the Complete KO podcast, and the guest was Cash Tyree, who actually also hit me up. And shouts out to Cash Tyree. Hopefully we're gonna get him on as a guest here eventually. But it was a really good episode. Sasha, the host, is from Canada, I believe Ontario, if I'm getting that right. He's also one of the guys on the MMA community. Super nice guy, and I really, really liked this show. It's essentially a full recap show. Their first episode is a full recap show for Bellator 207 and 208. So they go through the card. They mention a couple of the prelim fights, but you don't get people talking about Bellator prelims that often, so that was pretty rad. And then they break down the main card. They had a lot of thoughts, everyone did, about Larkin looking good, but not really putting a stamp on anything, and Roy Nelson's rough performance, as well as Bader dominating Mitrione. Made some interesting points about Bader and Khabib's, the difference in the dominance of their ground game, which, it's pretty fucking obvious if you watch those two side by side. But Bader's really started putting it together, and he housed Matt Mitrione in that fight. Check Congo and Tim Johnson's upsides and downsides during their fight. And they talk about Chael getting housed by Fedor. But just a really solid recap show. And I definitely recommend checking it out. I'm for sure going to subscribe to it and listen to it going forward. Next show I listened to was the Newsome MMA Podcast. UFC Moncton Breakdowns and Predictions with Fernanda Prates guest hosting, who I am a huge fucking Fernanda Prates fan. If you haven't been able to tell by our Twitter, I've hit her up a couple times telling her she definitely needs to start a podcast because she's a fantastic guest host when she's been on stuff like John Morgan's podcast, the MMA Roadshow, and stuff like that. So I really hope she ends up starting a podcast eventually, but doesn't sound like it's going to be anytime soon. They do mention for the Newsome MMA podcast that they sell a premium bet package, which I don't tail bets that fucking deep anyway. So if that's your thing, they do that, I guess. They break down the card bottom to top, and it's just a great breakdown. The host clearly did a ton of research. I can't remember the host's name right now, which is killing me. But interesting dude. I really liked him, and he does a ton of tape studying and a ton of research, you can tell. And Fernanda, of course, is knowledgeable as always. So it's just a lot of fun. They brought up some stuff I wasn't aware of, like Sarah changing camps to Extreme Couture, Sarah Mraz. And I actually heard it mentioned a couple other times after that, but cool hearing them kind of bring that up and get that into detail about stuff. Fernanda talks about how she's bad at picks because she gets too emotional about them, which fucking I've never done that on this show. I've definitely never picked I definitely don't have the tag Evanger. I picked Evanger AMA on Reddit. It definitely didn't happen. And they both are surprisingly taking Cummins, which we'll talk about later, but I'm still waffling on whether or not I'm going to take Cummins in this fight. I shouldn't take Cummins. I should take Serkinov, but I'm not sure I'm going to take Serkinov yet. We'll find out when we get there. But yeah, really good episode. I really enjoyed that show. I haven't heard one with a normal co-host. I'm going to have to listen to another one to hear that. I'm definitely going to subscribe. I actually already did subscribe to this, but I really like it. And the more Fernanda, the better as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. Another new show I listened to, the Rudis Wrestling Podcast, episode 1. Figured this was a super relevant one considering it's hosted by the former co-host of the T-Row and Funky Show, Mr. Ben Askren himself, who has been a big source of news this last week or two with, we'll say, quote-unquote trade between one championship, and the UFC. It's first off, everybody needs to stop calling that shit a trade, because it's not a trade. The UFC has the rights in the contract to reassign a fighter to another organization if they want to, and take a piece of that purse. That's in the contract, so that's crazy. I forget who tweeted that out. I'm assuming John Nash or somebody retweeted it. John Nash or Ian Kidd or one of those guys, I'm sure, did over from Bloody Elbow. But interesting stuff, and it's bad that so much of the media is calling it a trade. Some of them have at least started putting it in quotes, but it's not a trade. They're basically telling DJ, we're selling you to one. And then we just talked to one and got Ben Askren also, but not really a trade. So let's see. This is the first episode of the podcast. It's Ben Askren, and the other co-host is Matt Dernland, who just joined on. Matt is part of the Rudis wrestling team, which has, Rudis does all kinds of wrestling. They put out a bunch of wrestling content. They also have a clothing brand, stuff like that. And they're going to be doing regular episodes, I believe, actually. So they've put out a couple episodes now, including a bunch of recaps for the Worlds that just finished up. So they did recap episodes for, I think, each day of Worlds, which is pretty rad. How the fuck is there a cricket at fucking 5:11 in the afternoon? It's sunny as shit outside. All right, now that I scared the shit out of some crickets. They talk a bit about Ben's new video series he's doing called Mental Mondays, which is about the mentality of wrestlers and just kind of a motivational kind of thing that he's doing on Mondays. They talk about how there's a lack of footage for old wrestling matches, which is interesting. I didn't really ever get into watching much amateur wrestling outside of like when I was in high school for a bit, because a lot of my buddies wrestled at the time, which I've smoked way too much weed for wrestling back in high school. And drank too much, if we're being honest. Is that the fucking cricket again? I swear to God, I'm going to go stomp out some crickets here in a minute. But it's just an interesting episode. They talk about how Matt started out wrestling, of course, with all of his brothers. I believe all of them were national champs. I might be fucking that up. I listened to a lot of podcasts today. But Matt talks about how he became the wrestling coach at Ohio Northern after he competed. Thanks, dog, for fucking jumping in the background. And then he went to coach at Penn State after that. Just a really interesting episode. I'm definitely going to check out the show. I really liked Ben's old show, the T-Row and Funky Show he used to do with Tommy Rollins. And I'm excited to see what he has coming out with this new one. So definitely going to be following that. They also do video, which is pretty dope. So, dog, are you going to go sit down or some shit? Jesus Christ. Swear to God, it's like It's like a goddamn pet store up in the background. Apologies. Let's see. I listened to and the other new show I checked out was Sammy and the Punk, episode 96. Sammy and the Punk is hosted by Sam Diggity, great name, bro, and Josh Thompson. Josh makes fun of the fucking Bret Hart socks that Sam Diggity is wearing. This is how this is going to go for most of this show, is being like, what the fuck is Sam doing / wearing / talking about? I like Josh Thompson a lot. Of course, Josh Thompson out of AKA. Did he ever actually... You fought in Bellator, right? Not... I think he actually fought in Bellator. Or was he one of the dudes who went over to Bellator and got injured a whole bunch and never actually ended up competing? I can't remember, honestly. It's been a while. But yeah, there's a lot of old wrestling talk off the top. They watched fucking Dave Bautista's old MMA fight from 2012. Sam's excited about a potential Cody versus Pacquiao or Habib versus Mayweather fight. Which, like, what the fuck, dude? I get that you're hanging out with the dude from AKA, so you gotta, like, you're not gonna shit on AKA, which for good reason, but don't be excited about a Habib Mayweather fight. Let's not do that. That would be my advice. Josh, at one point, this is what I played on the intro. Josh talks about how he is ready to see trades happen, or he says get ready to see trades happen between MMA promotions. And that was prior to the news, not announcement, but news of DJ and Askren kind of getting swapped. And he goes into pretty far detail about it. His concept was a little different, but it was definitely similar. So it's interesting to hear him say that probably like 3 days before any of that was talked about. Like, well, 2 days before John Morgan talked about it on MMAJunkie Radio, and then 3 days after everyone started reporting that, like Ariel and everybody. Because John Morgan and MMAJunkie Radio and Dan from Oregon were a full day ahead of everybody else on that story. We will talk about that in a bit, but yeah, I like Josh. Josh is a good host. His co-host drives me fucking nuts. And then I realized why. Sam starts talking about how he's from a terrestrial radio background, which I'm like, oh shit, that's why you're doing the terrible voice and you're really fucking making generic ass points. He then brings up Rogan's special, and the producer and Josh call Sam out for his bad taste in comedy, which he then blames on, oh, I laugh a lot at dumb stuff because I'm dumbing it down, sort of like a laugh track for the audience. So this is around the time I was like, oh, I can't fucking listen to this show, unfortunately, because this dude is not my jam. I can't fucking stand Sam Diggity, which I should have, his name definitely didn't help. We'll put it that way. Sam admits that his jokes on air are weak compared to his jokes off air because he's trying not to offend anybody. Again, not the fucking kind of podcast I'm at all interested in. Sam also says he doesn't think that the Conor versus Anderson Silva fight is one that fans want to see, despite him pushing Cody versus Pacquiao and Habib versus Mayweather maybe 10 minutes earlier. The fuck? He then brings up Cyborg and the fucking Cash Me Outside girl, because that's how this show is going. And then Josh talks about getting hit on by gay dudes at 24-hour fitness a lot, which actually there's a lot of MMA fighters with that story. I believe Jake Smith from Bellator has talked about that. Forget who used to talk about the one in West LA that they got hit. Oh, Brendan Schaub has talked about that a bunch. I don't know. 24-hour fitness shit goes wild, evidently. So, yeah, that was the other new show I checked out. Not my jam, but the other three that I listened to were definitely really good. And I highly recommend giving them a listen. Like, if you're not into wrestling, like amateur wrestling, college wrestling, or collegiate wrestling, then the Ben Askren show might not be for you. But Newsome MMA and Complete KO podcast, I recommend both of. I think they're very well done. and like almost no real notable audio issues or anything, which is like good for shows I've never heard of. Complete KO podcast. It's their first episode. I didn't hear any audio problems or anything. So, meanwhile, I have 1,400 dogs walking in the background and a fucking cricket chirping outside. So, I really shouldn't be getting so uppity about sounds in the background. Speaking of sounds in the background, the shows for the well-rounded fight fan, shouts out to Co-Main Event Podcast. The shows that are not about MMA that I recommend you check out. Doug Stanhope put out a Week 4 Sober October update, which, I mean, sounds like you should probably check it out. And then Adam Carolla was on Hot Ones, and my buddy, who actually we have shouted out in the show notes for every episode, the dude who hosts Pod Gods, Giovanni, Superfan Gio, got shouted out on Hot Ones, which was dope as hell. And actually the backstory on that is Sean Evans mentions that he's a big Loveline fan, and he paid somebody for a DVD drive full of old Loveline episodes. So the thing is, that dude was illegally selling those episodes, and Adam Carolla actually was like, "Oh, you mean Superfan Giovanni?" So, Gio's the guy who actually does all the legit work and has been providing it to everybody for free forever, including myself. Jesus, Gio sent me a hard drive full, or not a hard drive, but a file full of stuff. Man, maybe 05, maybe 04, 05, 06, somewhere in there. Maybe earlier than that even. Gio's a great dude, so it was cool to hear him get shouted out. And actually, him and Sean Evans talked on Twitter, and Gio's going to send him a legit version of all of the like remastered episodes and everything in exchange for some hot sauce, which is dope as hell. So that shit is pretty rad. Also, RIP to Get Up on This, which is just ended. That was a show hosted by Jensen Karp and Maddie. I don't remember Maddie's last name, actually. But Jensen Karp, you guys would know as being the dude who's dating Topanga right now. That lucky motherfucker. Anyway, so, I don't know. Some stuff you should check out. That was it for the well-rounded episode. Some other shows I listened to that I thought were good. WMMA Today, episode 14 was solid. They've been off for a little bit, so they did a big recap of like Bellator 206 and a bunch of the fights that have happened since then. They take a look at Bellator's Hawaii card. They talk about Lipsky coming over from KSW, and they talk about Roxy versus Sajara, which should be a lot of fun. Or I should say the rematch of Roxy and Sajara. MMAJunkie, episode 2788. John Morgan was in studio. This is the episode where John mentions essentially that Askren might be coming to the UFC, and then almost directly after starts talking about DJ and talking about how like maybe they can work out a deal or something. It's like 24 hours before that news came out. But you know, why source anybody, Ariel, if you can just text Malky and he can tell you. Let's see. Talk about Tukagov getting pulled from the Artem fight and Connor's ridiculous ass Instagram post. Tinfoil Hat Podcast, episode 134, had guest host XG, and then also had guests Aaron Bowden and Jerry from Unbeliever Media. Essentially, Tinfoil Hat Podcast is Sam Tripoli's conspiracy podcast. Shouts to the name. And this is all about the Connor Artem drama around 229, Connor Artem Habib drama around 229, as well as how fucking shady Ali is. And it's just Sam Tripoli over and over yelling, "Oh my God!" Just over and over. Which, I mean, yeah. It's good that he's getting that story out there because it's ridiculous. And his crazy ass co-host who's just fucking every chance he gets trying to pull out the string and start pinning things to a board. Oh my God, that dude is... well, you know how the Monster can has the 666 and it's clearly an Illuminati sign. Well, Habib put the belt in front of that. So he was like shading the Illuminati. It's great. I recommend listening to it. Heavy Hands, episode 233 was really good. They did a they essentially made a bracket for a 165-pound division in the UFC. The super fighter division is obviously the real name of it. And they go through and they pick everybody who is pretty clearly a 65er or who would pretty clearly make the transition. And then they set up a bracket and did a theoretical walkthrough of who they think would have won that bracket. So you get a lot of interesting matchups, stuff like Dober versus Felder, Gunnar Nelson versus Tony Martin, James Krause versus James Vick, Bilal Muhammad versus Michael Chiesa, Masvidal versus Kevin Lee. Some really interesting stuff. So I highly recommend that if that's something you're interested in. Church What's Happening Now, episode 626 with Michael Bisping and Luis Gomez. I thought he had a middle initial, but I think his name's just Luis Gomez. So DJ Mikey B is in studio. They talk a lot about DJing in Manchester. Talk about katas not meaning shit in actual street fights. A lot of old stories. It's Joey Diaz stuff, so it goes all over the place. Talk about the OJ hearings, all kinds of shit. Lewis at one point says that The Wire is overrated, right after saying he hasn't seen past 2 episodes of The Wire, and then immediately says Game of Thrones is the best show ever. So Lewis's trash opinions validated, all right in a row. Definitely has a legit take. The dude has good taste in one thing, and that is his funny as hell girlfriend. They are drinking Heinekens during the show, and Lewis is vaping evidently trash weed because Joey Diaz starts yelling at him about, I got 26% Ghost OG over here. Why you hitting that 2% garbage, dog? It's fucking real good. And Joey Diaz also calls out that Conor McGregor was acting very cocaine-ish at the New York press conference. It's really good. Oh, also, Joey Diaz, more fucking great takes from Lewis. Joey goes, no, I did them. I played Habib straight, dog. Parlays are suckers bets. To which Lewis, of course, says, I always do a parlay. It's real good. MMA Roadshow 187 was good. Talk about the DJ Askren quote-unquote trade. I talk about the presser for Habib and Conor. Not presser. Gee, well, I mean, fucking... It might as well be a presser or just a fundraiser for the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The hearing for Habib and Conor. And evidently they were checking media's bags and there was hella security, which is pretty crazy. They had some interviews with Mark Ratner and some of the people. It's a pretty good episode. Also, John talks about how he bought Red Dead 2 because Westworld made him realize he likes Westerns. So he's playing a lot of that. And Cold Coffee plays actual Fortnite, meaning the Save the World mode, not Battle Royale. So, wow, that is some hot video game takes right there. But you guys must know I love you because I'm doing this instead of playing Red Dead right now. So I wanted to get something out, and since we all know Chris was quote unquote busy with work stuff and whatnot, and definitely not just playing Red Dead. I'm pretty convinced he's just playing Red Dead right now, but we'll see. Protect Your Neck, episode 98. Dan Tom talked about some whiskey recommendations in the beginning, and then he gives his picks for this Moncton card. He had some really interesting points. He did talk about Morris moving to Vegas and training at Extreme Couture, and had some interesting takes. But I'm definitely I like that show a lot, and I recommend listening to it. Writer and the Fighter, episode 23. That's good as normal. Jake Smith talks about being in Rick Story's corner and Rick Story retiring and all that. Definitely interesting. I think that was about it. Submission Radio was good, except for Colby Covington existing as a person. Jerry MMA Show, episode 46 and 45 were both good. 45 was with Justin Wren and Rafael Lovato Jr. That's more of like a serious... I mean, it's Justin Wren and Rafael Lovato Jr. So, it's good. It's inspirational. It's the opposite of the Jerry MMA Show, episode 46 with Ari Shaffir, in which case he just calls Bert a fat liar a whole bunch and tells crazy stories about doing drugs at UFC events. That's basically most of it. There's also a lot of off-topic stuff. It's barely an MMA show episode. But they do talk about doing mushrooms and acid at events, and he also talks about Ari and Joe smoking weed with John Jones and trying to convince him to go to big camp. So, interesting. That was about all I wanted to shout out. So that was the big news on that. Actually, some news that did come out this week. The Outsiders podcast, which is Jeff Sherwood and Josh Gross. That podcast is moving over to TJ DeSantis's Between Rounds network, which is like their Between Rounds patron. So they put out some pricing tiers of, I think, $5, $7.50, and $10 tiers. Everybody gets all the content, but there's a delay for the higher end stuff. And I think the there's a delay for the lower tiers of 3 days or something like that. And then I think the highest tier ends up getting entered in raffles for prizes and stuff like that or whatever. I don't know. I think I've been a patron for $15 for a while now. So they put out a ton of content. But I am mostly excited because TJ announced that he's going to be adding a ton of shows. They're going to be doing a lot more breakdown shows of cards. Gross Point Blank is coming back with Josh Gross hosting. They're going to be doing Beatdown After the Bells. They're going to be doing Beatdown with TJ is now going to be Dean Thomas is going to be co-hosting that with him. So that'll be hilarious because Dean Thomas is fucking funny as hell. Jeff Sherwood and Jack Encarnacion are both going to start doing sit-down interviews. So if you guys haven't heard MMA Rewind episodes from back in the Sherdog days, I believe they're still on Sherdog's website. It was the MMA Rewind with Jack Encarnacion. He did sit-downs. Well, actually, he did breakdowns of, I think the first 100 UFC events or something like that. Big, long, hour-long episodes where he brought people in and talked about, the first 10 events, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, that kind of stuff. Really interesting. He also did some long-form interviews back in the day, and that was all pretty fascinating. So I highly recommend checking that out and keeping an eye out for that when TJ starts all that stuff in November. So that'll be cool as hell. Also, there's going to be a lot more Collapsed MMA episodes where they do a look back at older events. However, they are going to be... Jordan Breen show is on hiatus until he can start doing they get a consistent schedule with Collapsed MMA. So some news on that. Zombie Prophet, the GIF King, started a Twitch channel. So if you want to watch that dude play Red Dead, I'm assuming that's what he's doing right now. And the owner of Five Dimes was found dead in Costa Rica, which I just found out about. I knew some shady shit was happening. He was maybe kidnapped, allegedly, maybe. But then, yeah, he was found dead on the 10th, maybe? 12th? I don't know, a week or two ago. So I'm no longer using 5 dimes odds, because I wouldn't put money in 5 dimes. Especially with some of the sketchy stuff before all that went down. So we will be using, I don't know, we'll probably use, Bovada or something. But yeah, we'll talk about it in a minute. But that was what I had for this first segment. So we are doing good on time. We're gonna wrap this segment here. You guys can listen to Ariel say some real dumb shit, and then you can listen to Dustin Poirier and Theo Vaughn talk about how crazy shit be happening during Mardi Gras. And we'll be back in just a minute. Or I say we, it's just me. I'm the only one here. Me and the fucking loud ass dog. Are you excited about it all?
I don't have cable.
What?
Yeah.
Why not? You're one of those cord cutters?
No, I don't really watch much TV. I play Xbox.
Really?
In my spare time, yeah.
You're one of those? Are you a Fortnite player?
No, I kind of I haven't played Fortnite yet. Purely to the fact that everybody's playing Fortnite, so I don't want to be like everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm spamming Assassin's Creed Odyssey at the moment. So it just came out a few weeks ago. So I've been putting some time in there.
So that's it? Like no TV shows, no nothing, no Netflix, nothing like that?
Yeah, I have a Fire Stick and I can watch stuff on there. So
Okay. So a little bit of that, but as far as watching other stuff, no, none of that. No Fortnite. Okay, I'm a big Fortnite guy. I just interviewed Ninja. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Do you know Ninja?
No.
Jeez Louise, we have nothing in common.
I was like, yeah, and I got hit with a bunch of uppercuts. It was crazy, man. Mardi Gras things.
Mardi Gras is fun, though.
Yeah.
Anything could happen at Mardi Gras, dude.
Yeah.
I love that, dude. My buddy, some guy slept in his truck all night one year. I slept in a portal that one time in New Orleans, man. I didn't have a place, yeah.
Oh, like a porta potty? Or,
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, the seat was down, but yeah.
That's like the Ritz-Carlton compared to where some people sleep out there.
That's true. It gets a little deep out there, Mardi
Man.
Gras. Dude, that's one thing I do miss about Mardi Gras, man. Everybody would drink all day and anything could happen.
Yeah.
You could start a family. You could start a fire.
You could start a family.
You could start a fight. Anything could happen at Mardi Gras, man. You'd end up with all kind of strange people.
Yeah.
I miss that stuff.
All right, I am back after that hilarious clip of Theo Von talking about Mardi Gras. I am back to break down this UFC Fight Night 138 Moncton Vulcan vs. Smith card. I believe it's Oezdemir versus Smith. Come on, Tapology. Just spell Oezdemir. It's not that hard. So I'm going to be giving out my picks. I also actually have Chris's picks since he sent them to me, although I don't have method. But I'll talk through them as we go through this. Again, it's going to be pretty quick, mostly because it's a Moncton card, and also I did tape study for this, but I don't have a ton to say about a lot of these fights. Some of them should be fun as hell, but there's a handful of these that I'm not ultra confident in either way. But up first on the prelims on Fight Pass, we got Stevie Ray Vaughan versus Justin Ayari. Stevie Ray Vaughan is, of course, out of Scotland, right? Yeah. He is coming off of a loss against Kajan Johnson and Paul Felder, and then before that had wins over Joe Lozon and Ross Pearson. And he is taking on Justin Ayari. Justin is coming off a loss to Darren Till back in May of 2017, so he's had a decent amount of time off. 15 months, 18 months, something like that. And then before that, he had a win over Jim Wallhead. After doing some tape study on this one, I coming into this, I was definitely leaning towards Stevie Ray Vaughan. But after doing tape study, I think I'm going to take Ayari in this. Stevie Ray is southpaw. He had a pretty kick-heavy game against Kajan Johnson. Pretty low volume against Kajan, but then again, so does everybody because of his footwork. And he definitely showed some rough takedown defense. Ayari was actually pretty competitive with Till. He showed heart and a solid chin. He got banged on and dropped multiple times in that fight, but just kept working his way through it. Showed good cardio to be able to recover that many times and not just look completely gassed. And he was still throwing up some pretty crafty subs off of his back, despite getting just bludgeoned a bunch. So I like him in this. He did show some pretty good pull counters and some good clinch game against the fence and some decent takedowns. So I'm going to take Ayari by decision, mostly off of just showing more volume and hitting enough like small shots against the in the clinch against the cage and getting a couple takedowns here and there and just kind of outworking Stevie Ray for a 3-round decision. So that is how I'm leaning on that one. Let's see. Chris, I believe, has Stevie Ray Vaughan. I have no idea why. Actually, I could totally see why. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he ended up taking this. After watching the tape, I'm having trouble not picking Ayari, so that's the way I'm leaning on that one. This is another one that watching tape just kind of made me more confused about what I already thought I knew about this fight. Arjan Bolar, out of Canada, coming off of the rough loss to Adam Wieczorek. I always mispronounce his name. There's like 4 different ways I want to say it, and they're all wrong. Wieczorek, one of those, something like that. It's probably none of those. He's coming off the omoplata loss. Man, he looked real green in that fight. he wasn't at all. Lou Thomas, I think was the one I saw point this out, but when he was on top in Adam's guard, he wasn't at all pushing off of the balls of his feet or trying to get any kind of actual, like, he couldn't put any torque into anything he was doing because he just had basically sitting there with the tops of his feet on the mat. Just small stuff that you're like, man, Mark Coleman figured this out in his first fight, like back in 2000, whatever, 90 something actually. Like, it makes me wonder what we're gonna see from him. He also refuses to put his hands anywhere but on the mat, and he refuses to in any way follow people's hips. Jesus Christ. Adam swung his hips like 1,400 times, and just because the fence was there was the only reason he didn't lock up consistent arm bars, or at least, or triangles, or a bunch of stuff. Because, man, he just refused to follow the angle at all. It was crazy. So, I don't know. I'm hoping Arjan has been... Oh, good. I told you, it's a fucking pet store in here. Hi, Seamus. You want to lie down, bud? Since you have the loudest fucking feet of all time. I mean, to be fair, it is a wooden floor, and it is a fucking short, little-legged dog, so... Marcelo Golem is coming off the loss to Timothy Johnson. Hung in that fight, was pretty competitive, showed decent takedown defense. And basically, it was a Timothy Johnson in the clinch fight. Pretty much picture that. He also gassed hard at the end of the second round. So, I'm taking Golem in this fight just because I can't, until I see something else out of Arjan Bhullar, I can't take him. I can't take him until I know, like, hey, I'm going to at least pretend to show some submission defense. Just, pretend. Yeah, man. That was a dude I was real high on, just off of his win over Luis Enrique. Because you're like, oh, shit, this dude came out of nowhere and just wrestled the shit out of him. And then you see anybody with a guard against him, you're like, oh, no. His striking is better than it looks. He kind of has that DC thing where, like, nothing he does is smooth or technically right, but it seems to work for him. He clips dudes. So I honestly would not be surprised to see Arjan actually piece Golem up a bit on the feet. I can't trust him not to make a weird decision. Don Madge versus Tejan Edwards. I couldn't find much on Don Madge, other than clips of him getting easily taken down. And I also couldn't find clips of, there's like I found a little bit of a striking, but man, he didn't even try and stop takedowns in the clip I saw, which is not inspiring me with any kind of confidence. I think that was the Mazzani fight that he had. And then the Contender Series fight Tay Edwards had against Austin Tweedy was basically a giant right hand. So I'm going to pick the dude with the giant right hand that... Oh, also, Don Madge, the clip I did see of him striking, I believe... Wait, let me make sure this is the right dude and not the other... Not Jonathan Martinez. No, Jonathan Martinez was the fucking super quick armbar, right? I believe. Let me make sure I'm not fucking this up. Yeah, Don Madge is the dude who holds his hands like Chuck Liddell style low. He's just like fucking shit-eating wild man defense. So that is the reason I'm picking the dude who throws the big right hand against the guy who keeps his hands at his waist. I don't know. Probably a crazy pick, but I'm going that way. Let's see. Oh, I guess I could do odds on this, huh? Let's go to best fight odds. And let's not see what 5 Dimes line is. So Bovada has, what column is that? This one. Stevie Ray Vaughan is a -155 favorite to a +125 Justin Ayari. I can see why, but I think people are sleeping on Ayari in that. Arjan Bhullar is a -170 favorite to Marcelo Golem +140. I'm not mad at that line. I think it's a little. It's assuming a lot from Arjan, but he is a decent. He's a good wrestler. I just question his sub defense. Tay Edwards and Don Madge. Tay Edwards is a minus 556 to a plus 400 Don Madge. All right. I'm guessing somebody scouted more than I did on either of these dudes. So the way Don Madge holds his hands gives me zero confidence. So I could see that. And then up next we got, I think this is the first fight of the TV prelims. Whatever the fuck we're calling those nowadays. Sarah Cheesecake Morris versus Toledo Bernardo. Sarah, as I mentioned a couple times on this ep, recently moved to Las Vegas and is training out of Extreme Couture. She is coming off the loss to Lucy Pudilova, which was super fucking dumb. Not on her part, mostly on the part of the fucking ref. I think it was Osiris Maya. I hope I'm not throwing him under the bus incorrectly. I think it was Osiris Maya, and I think it was in... No, it wasn't in Brazil. I don't remember where it was. But Sarah Moras rocks her with a high kick at the end of a combo, ends up getting a throw, getting on top, is pounding the shit out of her with elbows for like 3 minutes of the round, and then the ref is like, nah, you don't look Brazilian enough, stands the fight up, and Moras immediately gets tagged on the face a couple times after almost having a 10-8 round. She was still being super active. It was a terrible stand-up. And it basically robbed her of a 10-8 in the first round, which then definitely robbed her of the fight. And completely changed the momentum of that fight. So that was annoying. Before that, she had this armbar sub over Ashley Evans Smith. And she, from everything I've heard, she was at a weird training situation previously, and she's really liking Extreme Couture. So if that's the case, I'm actually going to take her in this. Toledo Bernardo, I'm still not sold on Toledo Bernardo. She's coming off of the back-to-back losses to Irene Aldana and Marion Renault. Before that, she had a win in Ladies Fight Night 5. Classy. It's a classy name for a promotion, or for an event at least. Maybe the name of the promotion is Ladies, and it was just Fight Night 5. Then that makes me a dick. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. So Toledo looked good against Marion Renault early, but she just slowed down so much after the first round. And it was just getting slower and slower on the feet. And then every exchange, she was starting to gas harder. And Marion Renault, towards the end of that third, is just pounding on her from top. She's good in scrambles early. She had a slick back tank against Marion Renault. I just don't have enough faith for Toledo not to gas in the first. And that's why I'm going to take Sarah Moras probably late second, early third sub. I think Toledo's going to get tired after the first. Sarah's going to piece her up on the feet a little bit, get top, and end up getting a sub. Or if Toledo gets sloppy on the bottom, because she had to constantly fight off some subs from Marion Renault off her back. And Sarah has some pretty slick arm bars. So we'll see. Arm bars are weird. Toledo Bernardo is a pretty high level grappler, and arm bars are weird. Especially, I would say arm bars are not all that effective in high level MMA. But on the women's side, depending on the division, depending on where in the division, it can, you see a lot of arm bars coming off of some of those tough, that whole tough house for the 135ers was or 125ers, was a bunch of arm bars. Actually, I think there's 2 or 3 arm bars on the tough finale card for that season, if I remember right. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I think Sarah gets the sub. I think Toledo's going to get the top control early. Just a matter of whether or not she's able to pass Sarah's guard, and then if she does, what she's able to do with it before she gets tired. So I'm gonna lean Sarah on that one for sure. Sarah is a minus 175 favorite to 170 favorite to a plus 140 Toledo Bernardo. I could see that. I don't favor Sarah that heavily, but also doesn't surprise me a ton that she's a semi-fair favorite. Calvin Kattar taking on Chris Fishgold. Calvin Kattar, or Qatar, since I always fuck that up, since people go back and forth on it too much, looked real good against Renato Carneiro early. A lot of sharp straights, and just showed pretty good boxing. Renato Carneiro definitely banged some low kicks home pretty consistently throughout that fight, but I thought he looked pretty good. He clipped Moicano early with a long right hand, if I remember right, and just looked sharp on the feet. It's going to be interesting because Chris is coming out of Cage Warriors. I should say, Calvin Kattar had the win over Renato Moicano, and then the loss to Renato Moicano by decision. Then before that, the wins over Shane Burgos and Andre Catchy-Feely. Why did I say Catchy-Feely? That's definitely not his name. Touchy-Feely. And Chris Fishgold coming off the win over Alexander Jacobson in Cage Warriors, as well as some other wins over dudes that I don't recognize the names of anymore. If I saw him fight, I know I've seen some of these fights before, but off the top of my head, I didn't go back that far on it. What I do remember of Chris is that he's a pretty scrappy wrestler, grappler, I would say. He's not he's not an American wrestler, we'll put it that way, but he definitely will get into crazy scrambles. He closes the distance with a lot of step-in jabs and winging hooks. Has a pretty quick check left hook that he relied on a lot against Jacobson. And he has he had a pretty slick ground game and back take game, especially against Jacobson, to get that sub. Really quick back take. Problem is I think he wings punches a lot. And everything Calvin threw in that last fight against Moicano was pretty straight down the pipe. And I think he's going to consistently beat Chris to the punch. If Chris is able to wing shit and get into crazy grappling scrambles against Calvin, I think he could probably sneak out a sub or at least top control and get some decent ground and pound in. But if he isn't able to, I think Calvin's going to consistently batter him on the feet and really make it tough for him to stay competitive, because Calvin hits hard and he's very sharp. I think that's going to be a problem for Fishgold consistently, so I'm definitely taking him in that one. Probably by KO. No, you know what? I'm going to go decision. I was going to go late KO, but I think Fishgold's cardio is good enough, so I'm going to go by decision. Did I mention Chris had Sarah in the last one? He did. And in this one, he has Calvin Kattar, which I do as well. Let's see the odds on this one. Chris Fishgold is a plus 220 favorite to a minus 280 Calvin Calvin. We'll just go with Calvin. I could see that. I think it's a little wide. I think it's kind of, I wouldn't play that at all. I think that's way too wide. But with Chris's debut fight in the UFC and also being a bad style matchup, it's definitely a tough out. Speaking of tough outs, good googly moogly. What are they doing to poor old T-Ball Goody? Nasrat Haqparast is at his TriStar, coming off a dominant win against Mark Diakese. You guys would know Haqparast as Mini Gastelum, or looking like the byproduct of if Gastelum and Henry Cejudo had a kid. She looks a little bit like both of those. And he looked really sharp in that Mark Diakese fight. Southpaw boxer. Actually fights a decent amount like Calvin. Really good at constantly pressuring with the feet and then using a lot of feints to draw out shots and then counter with just sharp, straight punches. Really looked really good against Diakese. Completely shut his game down. He just drew out all the big shots and would punish him for him consistently and just walk him down with constant pressure. Kept a crazy pace in that fight. Goody basically just swings wild as shit, and he's a bit foot slow, which is a bad combo against Haqparast. He had a couple same-time counters against Sage in his last fight, which was a while back. That was, January, February of this year? So he did catch a couple same time counters against Sage. Jesus Christ, dog. Really? Fucking. Yeah, you. Anyway, yeah, hit a couple of solid same time counters against Sage, but that's Sage. So yeah, I'm taking Nasrat. I'm taking Nasrat by first round knockout, pretty cleanly. I don't see a place where he doesn't pretty much take this. Like I said, the only thing, maybe if he really, like, if Goody can initiate grappling exchanges enough, then maybe, but do you have to keep doing that, dog? You're going to get put in the other room, bro. Oh my God, I apologize. This is normally why I normally shut all of these problems down, but it's a fucking off week if you guys can't tell. So yeah, I'm going Hakparast. He is a minus 950 favorite to a plus 575 T-Bow Goody. Yeah, that's about where I'd put that line. It's going to be crazy. If Goody takes that, it's gonna blow my goddamn mind because I just don't see a way for him to win that fight. Let's see. At welterweight, we got Nordine Taleb for Sean Strickland, which is this is one of the more fun style matchups on this card. I think this is gonna be a fucking scrap. Nordine Taleb is coming off the RNC against Claudio Silva in his last fight, which was a good fight. There was some early back and forth. Nordine clipped him a couple times pretty hard. Claudio caught the body kick, ended up on top. Heavy fucking top game from Claudio, and ended up getting the sub in the first towards the end of the round. Sean Strickland is coming off of the loss to Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, and before that he had a win over Court McGee and a loss to Usman. Looked really fucking good against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Was winning most of that first round. Ate a couple rough kicks, but overall was definitely winning the round. And then he ate a giant spinning hook kick and a bunch of punches and knocked the fuck out. It's weird. It is a hard one to pick. So really, that was the Elizeu fight was 5 months ago. It was in May, and that's mostly why I'm taking Nordine Taleb. Because it was a pretty nasty spinning back kick Sean Strickland ate, and then he got ground and pounded out pretty badly. So I'm going to take Taleb just off of head trauma, having less head trauma in the recent amount of time, because this is really razor thin for me, and I've been going back and forth consistently. I think if Taleb can constantly mix up the grappling and the striking enough, I think he might have an advantage on the in-betweens there, because he kind of turned it into a technical brawl against Silva. Strickland works a really good jab and check hook, which if Strickland can stick him on the outside behind a jab and just consistently land that in the check hook all night, I think he can take a decision. But I'm going to go Taleb via, probably decision. I think it's going to be a tough one, though, for sure. Actually, I might take Taleb by KO. I think I'm going to take him by KO in the second, again, just from the head trauma. And Taleb does fucking crack. I mean, he was the one that fucking straight up crucified Danny Roberts on the cage with a head kick, if I remember right, and then a right hand. Man, yeah, I'm gonna go Taleb, but this is a really, really competitive fight. Let's see. The odds on that one. Taleb is a minus 110 underdog to a minus 120 Sean Strickland. So, even as hell odds. Some of them even some of them are dead even across these books. So, pretty interesting. I am, like I said, I'm leaning Taleb, but not ultra confident in that pick at all. All right. After that, we got, who is it? Court McGee versus Alex Garcia. Court McGee's coming off the shoulder surgery, if I remember right. After his loss to Sean Strickland. Before that, he had a decision loss to Ben Saunders and went over Dominique Steele. Alex Garcia is coming off of a win over Ryan LaFleur. A loss to Ryan LaFleur, win over Muslim Saliakov, and a loss to Tim Means. Let's see. So for this fight, I'm at the point in Court McGee's career where I'm having trouble picking him. And it's not for anything he's doing necessarily. It's just he still has Court McGee's game plan in the year 2018, and that shit makes me nervous. He's still Keith Jardine style herky-jerky, and he still dips his head in every single combo he throws. I think he could probably win this fight, honestly. I think there's a decent chance he does win this fight. This fight goes past 2 rounds, he's going to be putting it on Alex Garcia. Because Alex Garcia's cardio has been pretty questionable in some of his fights. I mean, dude's huge, and all that muscle takes a lot of fuel, as everyone loves to say. So, alright, well, I solved one problem, but now I have new problems. One of the 2 troublemakers, luckily the semi-troublemaker, the good one, Sheamus, is lying down. The other one, whose jingle of her fucking collar you might still be able to hear, is being a dick in the other room, because she's constantly running around in here. So hopefully that issue is solved. However, I now have crows in the background, if you can hear that. So, like I said, I'm recording this from a goddamn pet shop, evidently. Oh, the crows are mocking me, you guys. Yeah, I'm not even drunk. They can't even call me Dumbo this episode. Alright. I'm going to keep on trying to push through. Did I say I have Alex Garcia against Court McGee? I have Alex Garcia against Court McGee. I don't know why. I guess because I think he's going to land 2 punches throughout the fight that hurt Court McGee both times, neither of which will finish Court McGee, and Court McGee will outland him significantly, but I think he'll probably win a really ugly decision. I think a lot of this fight probably takes place with Court McGee holding him against the cage, punching his thigh type shit. And Court McGee throwing a lot at range and not landing a lot. I think that's probably how this is going to go. But, yeah. So in that kind of fight, I guess I'm taking Alex Garcia. 0 confidence. Although I do have him in fantasy. So, I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. Alright. So the odds on that one. Alex Garcia is a -200 to a +160 Court McGee. Yeah, I think that's more of an age kind of disparity than anything. Just because Alex Garcia, dude goes through a lot of decisions, and going to a decision against Court McGee when you don't have great cardio sounds like a bad plan. But I could be wrong. Could go out and just smash Court McGee early. Dude throws haymakers constantly. He just doesn't throw much, so we will see how that goes. John Vellante is taking on Ed Herman. Oh, good. Now there's a fucking car bumping bass. This is the noisiest episode I've ever done. And there's half the people on it. So I guess I'm just giving you all some ambiance for the background. I'm going to take a sip of this delicious, super not delicious, grape Nos energy drink. Yeah, it's not good. Ugh, it tastes metallic. Shut up, Crow. Alright, so John Vellante is coming off a loss to Sam Alvey, the 205-pound foot slow ginger. As I believe Heavy Hands referred to him. Or they probably didn't do the weight part. But he is now fighting the other, slightly smaller, slightly slower foot slow ginger, and Ed Herman. I don't know how John Vellante just got the same style matchup twice, but against a smaller dude the second time. But I don't know. That can't be bad, right? John Vellante throws a surprising amount of kicks, especially low kicks. He landed a ton in the Sam Alvey fight, which I think is going to give Ed Herman mad problems in this fight as well. I think John Vellante is basically going to bang him with low kicks and then set up a big hook, is how I see this fight going. And I would be surprised to see anything other than that happen. I do like Ed Herman. He's coming off a rough decision to CB Dalloway, in which he got put on his back and punched in the head for a full round. Almost the same thing happened, but CB Dalloway got hit on the face. So then Ed Herman ended up on top and punched him on top for a round. And then, I swear to God, that dog. And then CB Dalloway ended up on top again in the third and punched Ed Herman in the face for a round. It's basically how those fights went. And John Vellante, I mean, he looked good against Sam in the way that he basically just threw low kicks and big sweeping hooks over and over again like he likes to do. And I think that'll super work against Ed Herman, who eats every single low kick you're going to throw at him and is susceptible to big hooks. So I'm going to take Vellante knockout in the first. I like to be wrong. I like Ed Herman a lot, but I swear to God, that dog, I'm going to fucking... Somebody's going to talking to later. Let's see. Keep on moving on. Oh, right. Ed Herman is a plus 200 underdog to a minus 260 Jean Vellante. Yeah. I don't see any reason that line shouldn't look like that. Andre Sukumtat is taking on Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez, I've seen literally 30 seconds of footage on, most of which was him running around after getting an armbar in the first round. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I'm taking Andre Sukumtat. I think he is well-rounded and scrappy. He looks better as fights go on. Bit low volume in the first round, and had some very poor decision-making against Sean O'Malley. Rough fucking fight IQ in that fight. But, yeah, I gotta take Sukumtat. I don't see a reason not to. I haven't seen nearly enough of Jonathan Martinez, and throwing kicks and having a solid ground game off your back will work, but I think it'll be trouble against a dude like Andre Sukumtat, who's just gonna walk you down and box you up and work the clinch. So I'm gonna take Andre in that one. Let's see. Andre is a minus 170 to a plus 140 Jonathan Martinez. Damn, I am picking a lot of fucking chalk this episode. I'm just now realizing. I'm surprised by some of these lines, especially the ones we're about to get to. But yeah, I'm taking Andre in that one for sure. Probably by decision. Let's see. So up next, we got Misha Serkinov versus Patrick Cummings. This fight I have been going back and forth on non-fucking stop. I'm really not sure how this fight goes. Here, let me pull this up. So, Misha Serkinov, 13-4, coming off of the loss to Glover Teixeira, and then before that, the loss to Moncton Oezdemir. And then before that, he had the win over Nikita Krylov and Jan Kutalaba. So, the Glover Teixeira fight is interesting in that he was beating the shit out of Glover Teixeira, and then Glover Teixeira was able to get a body lock, get a trip takedown, end up on top, and ground and pound, well, almost RNC, and then ground and pound his way to a win in the first round, which I'm real worried about happening in this fight. Patrick Cummins is real... he gets hit a ton. The Corey Anderson fight is a good example. The John Vellante fight is a good example. The Jan Blachowicz fight is a great example, in which Jan Blachowicz pieced him up for the first round consistently for about 4 minutes, and then it was the fucking Patrick Cummins show after that because Jan was so fucking tired. So, I don't know. Misha Serkinov will rock Patrick Cummins early. It's a matter of whether or not he finishes him early. I'm going to say yes, but I'm real not confident. I've almost picked Pat Cummins a lot in this one. Just the way Serkinov, once he hit the ground, had a lot of trouble, but it's Glover, so that's hard to tell. Pat Cummins is clearly no Glover Teixeira when it comes to grappling, but he also has very good wrestling, and Serkinov had a lot of trouble with a clinch takedown. Oh, I'm so not confident in this fight. Oh, God. I'm going to take Misha. I don't like taking Misha by KO in the first, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to be wrong. I'm advising against the opposite. I think Pat Cummins, he's an underdog, right? That's probably good money. If you're like, that's great, like, 2-man parlay. If you want to throw a suckers bet down. Pat Cummins at plus 270 to a minus 360 Misha Serkinov. That line is way too wide. That is way too wide considering how Serkinov got housed after 2 minutes of piecing up Glover Teixeira. Yeah, man, I'm real back and forth on that fight. By tomorrow, I may actually end up going with Cummins, but for now, Friday night when I'm recording this with crows in the background and a barky dog, I'm taking Misha. All right, this next fight I am not going to talk much about. I've got Michael Johnson by KO in the first because Artem Lobov just gets hit on the face a whole fucking lot. The only way Michael Johnson loses this fight is if you start hearing Henry Hoof yelling a whole lot from the corner and Michael Johnson's taking some big breaths, then shit is about to go bad. But any other way this fight goes, I see Michael Johnson crushing Artem badly. So I'm taking Michael Johnson. I picked him up in fantasy. I think he is going to smash. I think the Russian hammer is about to become the Russian nail. To use a fucked up metaphor I've heard 1,400 people use recently. Let's see. At Bovada, Michael Johnson is a minus 650 favorite to a plus 425 Artem Lobov. Yeah. Sounds about right. I saw it was wider earlier, which that's fucking weird. I don't think you can be that confident in Michael Johnson not gassing from killing Artem. Because that's how Artem wins this fight, is that he just takes so much damage that Michael Johnson goes to sleep on his own from just sheer exhaustion. But yeah, I'm taking Michael Johnson by KO in the first. There's just no way Artem doesn't eat a giant left hand, and he's not long enough to throw pull counters like he likes to against a guy like Michael Johnson. So I think that's going to be a lot of trouble for him. And then for the main event, we got Moncton Oezdemir versus Anthony Smith. So let me pull that up. Moncton Oezdemir coming off of the loss to DC. No shame. Via ground and pound in the second round. Before that, he was on a streak with first round knockouts of Jimmy Manawa and Misha Serkinov. And then a split decision win over OSP, as you do. And then before that, he fought in Akhmat Fight Show. So, fuck Moncton Oezdemir, unfortunately. Oh, man. Why does fucking Kadyrov have to ruin everything? Anthony Lionheart Smith, coming off the win over Shogun, where he killed a man. Oh, my God. So much dog noise. All right, Jesus Christ. I'm back. These goddamn dogs are driving me nuts. Sorry for the straight chaos episode that this is turning into. Of course it was going to, right? When I don't have Chris here to fucking wrangle me in, shit is going off the rails. So we're going to do this quickly before I have more fucking dog/crow/cricket issues to deal with. But like I was saying, Anthony Smith, the wins over Mauricio Shogun Hua, R.I.P., and Rashad Evans, R.I.P., before that, he had the loss to Maheta Santos and the wins over Hector Lombard and Andrew Sanchez. Jesus Christ, that dog's collar is driving me nuts. Moncton Oezdemir, like we said, was coming off a bunch of quick wins. Other than the DC fight, this fight I think is going to be a lot like the Misha Serkinov Pat Cummins fight. In that, I think Anthony Smith gets clipped and rocked bad in this first round, because Moncton is very good at being explosive and landing shots right behind the ear. Anthony Smith is susceptible to being clipped early. If Moncton Oezdemir doesn't put Anthony Smith away in the first round and burns a bunch of energy, he still has the power to put Anthony Smith out. But if Anthony Smith starts surging in the second, I think that could be trouble for Moncton. But I'm taking Moncton Oezdemir not knocking out DC is hard to really be a knock against you, no pun intended. So I'm going to go Vulcan, despite his affiliation with Akhmat Fight Show, which is shitty. But yeah, I got to go Vulcan on this one, mostly because I think he just hits hard enough, and there's going to be an exchange where Anthony Smith gets clipped, and I think it's probably going to be enough to put him out. But I really like Anthony Smith. I'd like to see either one of these guys win. I think they're both really tough, and they are some much-needed life in that 205 division. I should mention, Chris had all the same picks I did, basically, for the stuff I haven't mentioned. He does have Ed Herman somehow, but we both have Alex Garcia, both have Andrei Sukumtat, both have Misha Serkinov, both have Michael Johnson, and he has Anthony Smith, whereas I have Vulcan. So I'm going to take Vulcan by KO in the first, which means I'm expecting this main card to go pretty quick if it wasn't on Fox Sports 1, but it is, so it's just going to mean you get to see like 2 hours of commercials. So maybe watch this card on delay and just stay off your phone. Play some Red Dead for an hour or two and then watch the main card. Man, I don't know. This is an interesting event. We'll see how it turns out. This could be one of those shows where there's a lot of finishes and there's a lot of action. Or it could be one of those shows where it's a lot of long decisions. Because there's a couple dudes on this card who are not known for their output. And there could be some pretty long, drawn-out decisions. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this here before this little dog has an aneurysm in the other room trying to get attention. If you guys want to check out the show, you can always go to thesoundofviolence.com or sovpod.com. You can email the show, Chris at The Sound of Violence, or sovpod@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter, TSOVpod. I've been trying to be pretty active on Twitter on our account, so if you ever want to get in touch with us, you can always hit us up there, and we are happy to chat. So we will be back, I believe, on Monday. I think I've talked Chris into doing a recap show for this card, which, oh boy, is he going to carry that one based on how I think this is going to go. Although I'm not drinking by Monday yet, so this might not be the last Sober October show for me yet. We will see. I'm going to be hammered on next week's show, though. Next Friday's show, so get ready for that. That'll be interesting. And we will be back then. So, like I said, if you guys have any shows we should check out, or if you have anything you want to hit us up about, do that. We will get in touch. So until next time, this has been Pulver. I'll be back with Chris, so you won't have to hear me drone on fucking Billy Buss style. And until next time, everybody, don't get a little fucking whiny chihuahua. Go do something decadent. We out.